Good evening, everyone. At this time, I'll call to order the business meeting and truth and taxation hearing here on December 2nd, 2024 at the Faribault Public Schools District Office for the Faribault Public Schools School Board. Ms. Steve, will you determine if we have a quorum present?
Yes, Mr. Chair, there is.
Would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Again, we welcome those who are here and present at the district office and those of you watching online. Agenda item number 2 is approval of the agenda. Could I have a motion for approval of the agenda, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Boudreau. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Robichaud. Any discussion? Discussion. All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Agenda item number 3, consider adoption of resolution 25-12, canvassing returns of votes and certifying recount results of school district election. Could I have a motion for adoption of resolution 25-12, canvassing returns of votes and certifying recount results of school district election?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Boudreau. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Steves. And to begin our discussion here, I'm going to, on behalf of Mr. Benty, I'll ask Denise Anderson, the Property Tax Administrator and Elections Director, to come forward and I guess explain the process, et cetera, and we go from there.
Sounds great. Thank you for this opportunity for me to explain you what the process was and how it all went. As you recall, the school district had an election on 11/5. The school board canvassed the results from the general election on November 12th. Richard Olson requested a recount according to Minnesota State Statute 204C.36. This recount is at no cost to the candidate that requested it. Expenses will be paid by the school district. The school board met on November 18th to appoint myself as the recount official. On 11/19, Rice County, myself, sent emails to all school board candidates and to the superintendent and to the superintendent's clerk, Jean. Clerk, right? I hope that's what she is. Regarding the recount request. The email included dates and times of the recount and all the... Thank you. No, that's just fine. All the details about how the recount would be handled. I am going to go through those items right now so it is clear to all the school board members on how the recount was handled. I had planned on the recount to take 3 days. The recount did not take 3 days, but you never know. I rather had more time than not enough time. Plus, we had to coordinate with Goodhue County to be able to come over and bring their ballots from Holden Township. There is one farmhouse that is in the school district of Faribault. So they came over on the recount day as well. The details that were presented to all candidates was, please plan on 5 tables. We had 5 counting tables. And at each table there was a lead recount judge with 2 counters, one to the right, one to the left. And on the other side of the table is where the representatives from each candidate could sit to view the ballot. Each candidate, Mr. Olson and Mr. Robichaud, and pardon if I'm saying that wrong.
Correct.
Okay, had to provide me a list of representatives that could sit and represent each candidate. So those lists were given to me prior to the recount starting at 9 o'clock on Monday. So they had a person sit here or a person sit here on the other side of the table. The recount official took the ballot, started on the back of the ballot and flipped it over to where the office was. The recount official held the ballot and ruled between Jerry or Richard. If there was a vote for Jerry, it went in the Jerry pile. If it was a vote for Richard, it went in the Richard pile. If it was a vote for Richard and Jerry, because remember it's vote for 3 in the office, it went to the pile with Jerry and Richard. If there were no votes for the school board for either Jerry or Richard, it went to the other pile. Or if it was a vote for any other candidate, it went to the other pile. If there was any challenges, they put the challenges in another pile and we addressed it at the precinct, at the end of each precinct. And when the challenges were addressed, that was my job. The lead official raised their hand and said, okay, we're ready to do the challenges. We have no challenges to bring you today because they were all decided at the recount. Once they were done going through the ballots, they then counted all the Jerry ballots, all the Richard ballots, and all the Jerry and Richard ballots. Okay? So those numbers were presented to me or my assistant Jody, and they would say, so many votes for Richard, so many votes for onward and onward. And we balanced those to what actually happened on election night. If there was any discrepancies, we sat down, we figured it out why there was any discrepancies. Voter intent came into effect, and we will discuss that as we continue. The whole time during the recount, it was very open and transparent, and at all times I was available for anybody that had concerns. And I kept checking in with both candidates or the candidates represented. Do you have any concerns? Do you have any concerns? And there were no concerns brought forward. Okay? Also, when the ballots came from the secured storage, the ballots were brought to the counting table. Like this table right here could have been Richland Township. The candidates viewed the lock number that was on the blue lock of each case with what was certified by the election judges when they signed the flap. So the candidates could easily see that we weren't able to open the boxes before right there, because I do not have the authority to open boxes unless it is a recount. So the candidates all looked at that prior to it. The first day went until 5 o'clock. We got a lot farther than I thought, and the next day, Tuesday, we went until about 11 o'clock, and we were done. Before I concluded the recount, we talked about a few things, and I asked both candidates or their representative if they had any concerns, and at that time there were no concerns. Okay? Rice County had 7 staff to assist with this recount, and Rice County hired 11 election judges to come in and assist with the recount. Let me see. It was open to the media, and it was also open to the public. There was a public viewing area. And let's see what else. I just want to make sure I got everything. No challenge ballots. All right, so now if we could look at the spreadsheet up here, you will see November 5th, the first column is the votes for Jerry. That's what you guys certified on November 12th. The second column is the votes for Richard. The third column and the fourth column are what the hand count came back to. You will see that there wasn't much change. And the ones that have a change are due to voter intent. Okay? So when you have voter intent, if they filled in 4 ovals but crossed off 1 line, when you look at that by hand count or a recount, the one that's crossed off, the election judges or the recount judges ruled that the cross off line was that voter saying, I didn't want that vote for that person, but I wanted it for the other 3. So that's why there's some changes on line Faribault 3, sorry, maybe I should look at my computer, my notes here, sorry. Faribault P3, Jerry lost a vote due to voter intent. And then in Warsaw Township, he gained a vote. Nope, sorry, Wells. Okay? So by voter intent, because the machine would have seen marks in all 4 ovals, even though one had a line through the name. Voter intent says those 3 get the vote, and you do not, it's not an overvote then. Okay? There was 1 misfiled ballot, and you will see that in, P3, that's the one in P3. My voter intent, I'm sorry, I misquoted myself, is Warsaw Township, Jerry lost a vote, and in Wells Township, he picked up a vote. And that is very common. If you pick up one, you probably lose one in another district. Okay? In P3, we had 1 ballot that was misplaced. And what that means is when it goes through an election machine, okay, there's many ballots that go through an election machine. At the end of the machine, they're paper clipped together. And then the next one would be a different precinct, because you only do 1 precinct at a time. So we are assured that 1 ballot is locked up in a district that I don't have the authority to open. And why I don't have the authority to open it is because it's not part of the 656 school district recount. So you will see on P3, Faribault, both candidates lost a vote. That is because we didn't have the physical ballot to actually count. We believe it's locked up, could be locked up in Dundas. We have a chart here of everything we have counted and in what order. And there are many times that we counted 1 ballot at a time for Faribault P3, and then we did another district right after it. I am very confident in these results. I'm very happy in the results, and I wasn't expecting anything but. So they both lost 1 vote each. I am open for questions.
Board members? Questions? Mr. Olson?
Yeah, it was a very good recount. There was 15 judges, and they were all professional, friendly to talk to. I do have some concerns, but I've thought that, it's time to move on. The election is over, and it's time to, stop this process.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Other board members? Anything else? Last call for discussion. Dr. Robichaud.
Just want to address my comments to Mr. Olson. Richard, I respect your decision to ask for a recount. That was your legal right. I respect that you did that, and I respect the professional way that you've dealt with this over the course of the last several weeks. So my respect and appreciation goes out to you, Richard.
It was very educational. Never went through a recount, and you really don't want to, because you're staring at the ballots one after another. And they took their time. Sometimes I'd say, hey, wait, I didn't see that. Then they would go back. Very nice, very nice. But I'm surprised of how many people didn't vote at all for any candidate whatsoever. To me, that's a little disturbing, because we spend a lot of taxpayers' money. But again, that's, maybe they just voted president. And then they, I think we had a senator, and then they stopped it. I don't know. I didn't look at that. But I'm surprised at how many people did not vote for any candidate whatsoever. And there was a lot of them. That was the other pile.
Very good. Last call for discussion, board members. Hearing none. Ms. Steves, this is a resolution. I'm going to ask you to do roll call, but first, for transparency, the resolution does state, I'm just going to read the first 4 items here. Be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District number 656, Faribault, State of Minnesota, as follows. One, it is hereby found, determined, and declared that the election of the voters of the district held on November 5, 2024, was in all respects duly and legally called and held. Two, the school board previously met on November 12, 2024, to canvass the results of the election. Therefore, a timely request for recount was made by the candidate for school board member receiving the most votes from among the candidates who were not elected. Three, a recount of the votes for school district office was conducted on November 25 and 26, 2024 by the recount official designated by the school board. And then number four, as specified in the attached abstract and return of votes cast, and as reported by the recount official, voters of the school district voted at said election on the election of 3 school board members to terms of 4 years to begin on Monday, January 6, 2025, as follows, and then it lists the votes, and then there's item number 5 and 6 within the resolution. So with that, Ms. Steves, will you please do a roll call?
Linda Boudreau,
Aye.
Linda Moore,
Aye.
Richard Olson,
Aye.
Jerry Robichaud,
Aye.
Cassie Steves, aye. John Bellingham.
Aye.
Passes 6-0.
Thank you. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you, Ms. Anderson, for attending and describing the process to us, et cetera there. So we
Thank you.
appreciate it very much, the professionalism.
you.
Next on the agenda is item number 4, the Truth and Taxation meeting. And this meeting will start at 6 o'clock, so I do not want to get into other school board business items on the remainder to interrupt that, so I'm going to issue a recess here of the school board meeting until 5:59, which I will call it back into order, and we'll go on with the Truth and Taxation. So we are in recess. call the meeting back to order. It is 6 o'clock PM, and we are on the agenda item now of the Truth and Taxation meeting. During the Truth and Taxation meeting, the public will be given a reasonable amount of time to comment and ask questions regarding the proposed tax levy and budget. And again, the questions and comments must pertain to the proposed property tax levy and budget. And Ms. Zavral, did anyone contact you or with questions or whatever for this tonight? Okay. We got it. Thank you. So with that, I will turn it over for a presentation on the Truth and Taxation to Ms. Barbie Raisler, our Director of Finance and Operations. And once again, board members, we allow the presentation in its entirety, and then we will open it up for questions like that. So Ms. Raisler, it's all yours. Thank you for presenting tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be here and talk about this super exciting topic of taxes. So the first item of business is to talk about what the truth and taxation laws are. And just so we're aware of that, basically, we have to have a public meeting announcing the date, time, location, all of those good things. The taxpayers have received mailing notices from the county regarding proposed taxes, and that includes the city, county, and school district. There's just a little glitch there. Thank you. So the requirements, there are only 3 requirements for a truth and taxation presentation, and they include discussing the 24-25 budget, discussing the 24 payable 25 tax levy, and then we do have to allow for public comment. The points to remember are that the school district is funded by the federal government, the state government, local fees, and also local taxes, with the majority of that coming from our state government. Other points to remember is that the state legislature determines the revenue formulas except for any voter-approved referenda, and that our local levy and state aid is also determined by the legislature. A very important piece is that an increase in taxes does not mean an increase in revenue per se. It may, but more than likely it does not unless we're doing something voter approved. We have what's called equalization in Minnesota, so we have portions of our funding coming from levy and portions coming from aid. And so a lot of times if our levy goes up, our aid goes down, making it tax neutral. The property tax process that you're seeing here, there are 7 major steps to that process. The first one involves the city or county assessor, and they provide what they feel the estimated value of each parcel of land is. So the county assessor actually has one of the harder jobs on the property tax process. The legislature sets the formulas for tax capacity, and what that means is, if you remember, in Minnesota we have referendum market value and we also have net tax capacity. Tax capacity is where we have our classifications of different types of properties, such as farmland, like agriculture, commercial, home, residential, green acres, those different pieces. The county auditor then calculates the tax capacity for each of those parcels. The legislature sets the formula to determine what the school district levy limits will be. The Department of Education calculates what those levy limits will be based on the formulas approved by the legislature. Then comes the school board step. So the school board gets to determine what they will propose levy for in September. And if you remember, we proposed the maximum, which 99% of school districts will do because they don't want to sell themselves short of what they're able to levy for. And so normally you propose the maximum. Then in December, which we're doing tonight, is where we actually adopt the final levy with a literal dollar amount. The last step then is for the county auditor to divide how much each property then will pay for tax capacity and how much they will levy for each parcel of land. This is a confusing part for a lot of people. This is the cycle. So in 2024 is when we certify our property taxes. Those taxes are collected in '25, and then school districts recognize that revenue in '26. So what we're doing tonight will be recognized as revenue in fiscal year '26. So just to kind of keep that in mind. This is a chart that I'm sure you've seen for years and years and years. This is the one that shows us how far behind our general ed formula allowance is based on inflation. So in 2003 is when we stopped keeping pace with inflation as far as the general ed formula allowance. This year, that amount is at $7,281 per pupil, when it should actually be $8,645 per pupil based on inflation that we've recognized. So we're basically $1,364 underfunded per pupil, and for Faribault, that comes to about $4.6 million annually. So that's a big piece to remember. The state is doing a great job trying to get us back on track, but that is still our reality. Now we'll jump into the budget a bit. So here you're seeing the fiscal year '25 revenue summary. And again, this is a budget that you approved back in June most likely. And this is just giving you a snapshot of all of the different funds that Faribault currently uses. We have our general fund, which is the one that we mostly talk about when we're talking about our general fund balance and those different pieces. We have food service, community education, construction, debt service, internal, which for us is our self-insured insurance plan. We have our OPEB irrevocable trust, and we have student activities. This is showing you what our revenue summaries look like for each of those funds. You'll notice that our general fund is decreasing in revenue, and the vast majority of that is due to ESSER. We no longer have any of the COVID dollars that we had been receiving for quite a few years now. So that's what you're seeing in a decrease. One of the largest decreases, of course, is in our construction fund. We went out for a bond and received that, and so we will not be receiving much of any revenue for our construction because we recognized all of that last fiscal year. Here's the obligatory pie chart. So this is showing just Fund 1 and the general fund, as we talked about, and where we are receiving our dollars. So again, you'll see that the vast majority of our dollars are received from the state, and that's equaling almost 78% of what we receive in funding is from the state. 3.8%, or roughly $2 million, is received for federal sources, and that would be things like our title and different areas that we get federal funding. 15.6% comes from our property taxes, and then we have another 3%, or about 1.8 million, that comes from local or other revenues like interests or registration fees, activity fees, those different kinds of things. The next slide then shows the information for the expenditure side. And so you are seeing again those same funds. Again, the general fund is the one that we most often talk about. Again, you're seeing quite a change in, as an example, the construction fund. We did spend we had anticipated spending about 4.4 million last year to start our HVAC projects, and this year we're anticipating to spend about 3.7 million, which most of it we've spent so far this year based on our summer activity that we've done. And again, the pie chart showing what the breakout is based on object. And so where we spend most of our money is in our salaries and benefits for our staff, which is our greatest asset. That's the best asset that we have going for our school district, is our staff. And so roughly 70% is spent there. 16.4% is spent on purchased services, and that would include things like our transportation, any of our contracts, architects, those type of expenditures. We have supplies at about 2.6 million. Capital, which would be any type of equipment or capital repairs and those types of things, at about 2 million, and then other at just 420 some thousand, or just 0.7%. When we talk about then the 24 payable 25 levy, there are three funds that we talk about. And those three funds are the general fund, community service fund, and debt service fund. Those are the three funds in which we gather taxpayer dollars to support the school district. What this particular comparison data is showing is what we levied last year, our actual levies, versus what we are proposing for payable in 2025, which will be recognized in fiscal year 26. So we have things like our voter-approved referendum, and that is our operating referendum. We also have local optional revenue, and that is board-approved, and that is based on student count and value of our properties. So you'll see an increase there because our properties did increase in value. Our equity revenue, transition, the operating capital did increase, and that again is based on, that's an equalized category, which means that a portion of it is levy and a portion of it is aid. We have building leases, our long-term facilities maintenance, and the list goes on. You can see then that there is a line for adjustments, and I think it's important for people to understand what adjustments mean. What happens with adjustments is the state will go back at least 2 years to see and recapture how many students you actually had versus how many you're guesstimating you have, because that's one of the main factors in any levy, is to tell the state how many average daily membership you have or pupil units. They are two different things. Based on that, then, when the year is done, you'll find out actual figures. Based on actual figures, then the state will either provide more in an adjustment or take back in an adjustment. So it's always best to, have your best guesstimate going forward with what your pupil units, what your ADM looks like. So when you're seeing adjustments of like $4,000 in payable 24 and $26,000 in payable 25, most of that has to do with your student count. It also has to do with your actual expenditures. So if you thought you would levy in a particular area but then didn't have expenditures in that area, the state is happy to take that money back. So that's kind of how that works, so that we're always balancing. What we're seeing in a change for all of the general fund is 2.26%. The next slide shows then what we're showing for community service as well as debt service. In community service, the item that might be of most interest is coming from like our early childhood family education, where we're increasing the levy, but you'll notice then that the basic community education is decreasing by almost that same amount. And again, the adjustments here are also taken into account. We're actually decreasing in our community ed levy. And this was somewhat purposeful by the legislative session that was in 2023, where the state actually decreased levy amounts. They wanted to give more aid. So what we're seeing is more aid versus putting a burden on the taxpayer. So again, a decrease of 1.12%. And then the last category is the debt service fund. Here we are seeing a decrease, and the majority of that decrease is coming from our long-term facilities, where our levy is actually going down. Our revenue is about the same, but our levy is going down, so we're getting just a titch more in aid there. So overall, that fund is going down 5.96%. When all three of those funds then are tallied, we are seeing a difference of about 82,000, almost 83,000, which is an increase of 0.68%, so less than 1% increase in our property tax levy. So the next slide shows then, just based on those three funds and the cumulative, again, those same figures. So our difference for the general fund is $217,000 increase. Our community ed is a decrease of about $5,000, and our decrease for debt service is about $130,000. And again, that overall difference is $82,000, or 0.68%. Again, key talking points to remember. Property valuation increases does not mean an increase in revenue for the district necessarily. It could be, but it does not necessarily mean so. Increasing valuations can lead to less state aid because then the state feels that you're property rich. So if our property increases, our aid decreases because the state feels that you can afford then more in a levy. Just for your information, the valuations that we have on our referendum market value, so that would be each parcel considered about the same, increased 9.8%. And our net tax capacity values increased 11.6%. So people will most likely see an increase in the value of their property that they own, but the school district will not be a main driver of why taxes went up because our increase is only 0.68%. So a lot of times when we take phone calls from taxpayers of the community, they want to know why their amount is going up so much, and usually we're able to explain it, look at the value, how much did your property appreciate in value, and usually that helps answer their questions. So tonight, later on in the meeting, what you will be asked to do is approve the 25 proposed property tax levy with an increase of 0.68% or $82,838.29. And that is the recommendation that I'll be providing again later on in the meeting, where you actually approve the total levy amount of $12,338,072.70. And at this time, I'm happy to answer any questions regarding the levy or taxes.
All righty. Board members, do you have any questions on the presentation on our proposed property tax levy and budget? Questions? Pretty thorough report there, Ms. Raisler, so yes. Any further questions? One here? I don't see anything, so
Good.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if people send in, I think some people did tell me they sent in some questions, so.
We did, Dr. Moore, I received
Okay.
2 emails,
Okay,
and in reviewing those, we did not feel that those questions were about the taxes or the proposed levy and budget. They were more operational within the district. Mr. Benty, maybe you could, operational in the district, how many do you have this, how many do you have that? Those questions, and since I was out of town today, I have not had time to reply to them, and I will get to them as soon as I
so
can.
if these people have, these are taxpayers, if they have questions, how can they get them answered then, I guess is my question.
Email Ms. Raisler, Mr. Benty, myself, and we'll forward that and get back to them as soon as we can.
So their questions will be answered?
Yes, definitely, yes. Okay, we'll move on to agenda item number 5, items of information. School Board Representative, Ms. Jillian Huberty, do you have anything for us today after that detailed, all the happening at the,
I do have one announcement,
oh, great.
a little bit. So we have donkey basketball at 7 o'clock on Wednesday night at the high school, and we will be selling crumble as well. And all proceeds will go to our Toys for Tots, which then Student Council will use to then buy gifts for people in our community. But we're selling crumble, so tell people and come and watch Teachers versus Students at donkey basketball Wednesday, 7 o'clock at the high school, Nomeland Gym.
We didn't even need a paid advertisement for that, so it's very good, Jillian, thank you. Items of information, school board members. Anyone? Dr. Moore, go ahead.
Okay, I just wanted to mention too, I went to the Rotary concert the other night, and it was fantastic. I came in a little bit late, but I did hear most of it. And I think we have some fantastic music students that participated, and I was very impressed by them. And I'm also impressed by our 3 music directors, the vocal and the orchestra and the band. And I think they put a lot of effort forward, and so I think we need to, really recognize them. I think we have a good music program in Faribault Middle School and also Faribault High School. And so I think they need to be recognized. So thank you very much. I enjoyed it that night. Also, I would just like, and I forgot about, I should have mentioned this sooner, but I was invited to Mrs. Bree Isaacson's on Friday at 2:20 p.m. They have what's called the Big Falcon, Little Falcon Club. And I don't know if people are aware of that or not, but it's similar to the Big Brothers, Big Sister. And what you do is have the older students assist the younger students in their studies. And I got to see that firsthand. And they looked engaged. Both, I think the older students really benefit by, assisting with the younger students. And I think the younger students were having a good time too. Not only a good time, but they were learning in their studies. And I think it's a great program. And I think it's a great idea. And I just want to commend Mrs. Isaacson for that. And I think it's going to continue. So if you have a chance to go on a Friday, just let them know. I think it's at 2:20 p.m. And so, yeah,
Great.
very good.
And Dr. Moore, it was a good thing we finished the board meeting early enough so you could get to that Rotary concert.
Yeah.
we
I was
did
a
that,
little
so-
late, but I made it.
Yeah, that was a good thing. So, very good. So, anything else here, board members?
Mr. Chair, I would just
Ms. Boudreau.
say thank you for letting us get to the concert because the meeting was over enough. It was very good. And it is also wonderful that our Rotary Club uses this for raising money for their fundraising for scholarships. And the students did not disappoint, and they did a wonderful job. And I also wanted to mention that our DECA group was at setting up for the Iris Turkey Trot on Wednesday, and we have never unloaded those trailers as fast as we did that day. And so I just want to thank them for their work. They did a wonderful job and did many other things, so much to do for that event. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Boudreau. I just have a couple things. First of all, just to continue what Ms. Boudreau said, our kids are out there doing great things, not only with the Irish Turkey Trot, but if you noticed on the Faribault Community Thanksgiving, we had a basketball team, boys basketball team down there. I don't think they peeled 300 pounds of potatoes or something, and they weren't even in the military, to do that. So had been there, but just great things our kids are out in the community doing, showing what the quality of kids that we have and how they link to the community is really, really a great thing. Also, the entire board received an email from Sarah Folstead, the Rice County Administrator. And when an email goes to the entire board, it's public information. And I think for transparency, I would like to read that email out here, so to the public, and it was regarding the recount election. And this email says as follows: Superintendent Benty, we were made aware of certain statements that were made at the November 18th school board meeting regarding Rice County Elections Director Denise Anderson. A lawsuit filed in 2022 naming Ms. Anderson was dismissed by the district court, and the dismissal was upheld by the Minnesota Court of Appeals. One remaining issue, which does not involve any allegations against Ms. Anderson, has been appealed to the Minnesota Supreme Court. That remaining issue has to do with service of process under a specific Minnesota statute and is being handled by the Secretary of State and the Minnesota Attorney General's office. At no point did any court find any fault on the part of Ms. Anderson, and in fact, all levels claimed against her were dismissed. Rice County has every confidence in Ms. Anderson and her abilities to handle elections in a fair manner and in compliance with the law. If you have any questions or concerns during this process, please feel to reach out. Sincerely, Sarah Folstead. So again, clarification for the public. With that, we'll move on to 5C, which items of information, which is Superintendent Benty.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I was going to do my best Dave Letterman impersonation because I had the top 10, but then board member Boudreau stole one of them, so I only have 9. So our summer STEAM program was recently recognized by Commissioner Jett as a program of excellence. Only 7 programs in the entire state receive this award. This past summer, 334 Faribault kids participated in summer STEAM. Our community ed team does a great job at running that program, and congratulations to them being one of only 7 recognized by the Commissioner of Education. Our all-staff fundraiser for Dolly Parton's Imagination Library has officially ended. We had some money trickle in today, I believe, that wrapped it out. Our preliminary calculations show that we raised a total of $7,024, which means that we were able to sponsor 234 children with books for a year. All right, so that was a huge success for us. As I guess I have 8 because our chair talked about this when the boys basketball team peeled over 300 pounds of potatoes and deboned 32 turkeys and prepared cranberry sauce cups. All right. Our Faribault Area Learning Center staff served a traditional Thanksgiving meal to their students. Our ALC team did a great job organizing this special event. It was a wonderful way to bring our school and community together. Miss Canfield's art class at the middle school participated in a turkey in disguise competition. Other classes and staff members had the chance to vote on which disguises were the best. I even got to vote as well. There were some amazing disguises that they had the turkeys dressed up as. It was fun to see all the creative designs that they were able to come up with. Our kindergarten classes at Jefferson held their annual Friendship Feast. Each student brought a vegetable, and as a class, they made a soup and shared what they were thankful for. I can only imagine what all went into that soup. So, Jefferson first grade families were invited to listen to a reading of the book Turkey Trouble and work on an art project together. The FHS Faribault High School Choir will be putting on a Christmas concert this Thursday at our cathedral at 1:30. And then, as Ms. Huberty alluded to, it is snow coming week at Faribault High School, which means they're doing a variety of fundraising events, including a coin drive, donkey basketball, bingo, a pep fest, and a winter formal dance, all to raise money for Toys for Tots. So, Mr. Chair, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Denti. Move on to agenda item number 6, public comment. We have one person who signed up for public comment, Ms. Carolyn Treadway. Ms. Treadway, as you prepare, if you would just give a brief thing what your topic is tonight, please.
Sure.
So thank you.
I'm speaking to reorganization of elementary classes.
Thank you.
Good evening, board members. I earnestly ask you to accept the proposed elementary reorganization plan. As a sub, I witness pretty fairly often the educational challenges that exist with current class sizes in some classes. There is absolutely no research that advises for large class sizes of 29, 30, 31, even 32 students that currently exist in our elementary classes. There are some key negative effects of large class sizes that include reduced individual attention, increased classroom disruption, lower student engagement, difficulty addressing diverse learning needs, teacher stress and burnout, less opportunity for interaction and collaboration, and negative impact on social development. I could list even more issues with large class sizes, yet I'll stop here. Please do what is best for all elementary students in the Faribault Public School System and vote for the proposed reorganization plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Treadway. We'll move on to agenda item number 7, the consent agenda. The consent agenda consists of the minutes from the November 25th, 2024 business meeting, employment, additional assignments and other, and authorization of payments, transfers, and investment account. So could we have a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Boudreau. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Steves. No discussion on consent agenda. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to agenda item number 8, District Advisory Committee, there is no report. Agenda item number 9, Policy Committee, no report. 9A, consider approval of new policy 606.5, library materials. So I'll entertain, could we have a motion for approval of new policy 606.5, library materials?
So moved.
Thank you, Dr. Robichaud. And do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Boudreau. And discussion.
Mr. Chairman?
Ms.
I'm
Boudreau.
sorry.
No,
Ms. Boudreau, go ahead.
I just want to thank the policy committee, those members on the policy committee and the board here, Linda, Cassie, Ms. John on, I forget.
I'm
is it
not on.
just two?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to some of the concerns that were mentioned, and I also want to thank a couple of our community members, Barbara Green and Mary Hackett, for bringing forth written letters to us, just sharing some of their concerns, and those concerns have been accepted and amended into this policy, and I am grateful, and that is what I want to say, is thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Policy Committee, Linda and Cassie.
Dr. Moore, did you have something?
Yes, on the minutes, and this was from November 19th, yes, we did, I just wanted to mention that the change was changed from 1 to 2. I think we all got that email. And there was discussion, not consensus, on 7B, and I think I would like to discuss that a little bit. It would be 7B, which is on 606.5-4. This is reconsideration of specific library material. Does everybody find that on there?
We're discussing it, so
Yes,
you
yes.
certainly may.
A school district employee, so reconsideration of specific library material would be a school district employee, student, or a parent or guardian of a school district student may request consideration of specific library material on the basis of appropriateness. I thought it would be a good idea to include somebody from the community, one of the taxpayers, or you might say, community member, and that's where we couldn't come to a consensus on that, so I'd like to discuss it now, just the pros and cons. But the fact that, taxpayers are, contribute to our school, it's obvious, they're taxpayer money. I think it would be important that we included maybe a volunteer from the community or some member of the community on that one. So I'd just like to open it up for discussion.
Okay.
I think there should be, since a taxpayer should, be represented or a community member.
Okay.
Could be volunteer too.
Further discussion?
Well, to that point, Mr. Chair, we are trying to request community members be part of our Reading Partner volunteer program. I don't know if you recall that on our joint boards meeting, really promoting, trying to get more people in our schools to help students with their reading. And those are volunteers. So I'm not saying, I'm just saying that we're looking for a couple hundred people. So if we could include, if the board wants to include a volunteer, I think this would be a good place to insert it.
So we would have, we would have may include, because sometimes, if you can't get a volunteer, obviously, we wouldn't be able to do that, but I think it would be good to may include a volunteer if they do wish.
Mr. Chair, can I ask for a point of clarification?
You certainly may.
7B talks about who is allowed to make a request to remove a book. So I wouldn't want to open it up to just volunteers. I would say if the board is looking to open it up to the community, open it up to the entire community, not just people that volunteer within our within our district. So, because that would be confusing on who has and who has not volunteered and when they volunteered, and that might cause a lot more headache trying to figure out if they're a volunteer or not, or if they're just a community member.
So, Mr. Brenta, you're just saying that just open it up to community members if they'd like to make a request. I think that's a good idea.
So I would say that school libraries are considered public libraries in a sense that we use public funds. We do not allow citizens to come off of the streets and select and checks things out of our libraries. So if the district chooses to add that in here, it could substantially increase the number of requests that the school district will receive for reconsideration of materials. With one thing staying constant, the same number of cycles that we would be able to go through per year, which would be a maximum of probably 6 reconsideration cycles per year, the way that this is currently written. So I just want to be clear about that it could increase the number that are sent to us, but it will not increase the number that we're able to do per year, if that makes sense.
For the discussion, just a reminder, we do have a motion and a second for approval of the new policy 606.5 in our discussion. So at this point, I am not hearing any motion for an amendment or to refer back to committee.
Mr. Chair?
Dr. Moore?
I do appreciate the fact that the policy committee, we did come to consensus on a couple of things where we added in section V.A. or .5, change 1 to 2, as Ms. Bedreau said, and keep as is, but add 2 parents or guardians in 7.D.2.E. And then we had another one too, that was more of a minor one. But I think we can always go back and change this, but I do like the changes that were made so far. And I hope at some point we can look at this again and maybe can make some alterations on it. But right now, I'm glad that we did make some concessions to the public.
Very good. Any further discussion? This will be the last call for discussion. Ms. Boudreaux, do you have something? That's okay. Sorry.
No, I'm good.
Yes. Okay, with that, I'm ready for a vote. So we do have a motion and a second for approval of new policy 606.5, library materials. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. I'd also like to thank the policy committee for their work on this, and Mr. Venti and staff, et cetera. So thank you for that. We'll move on to agenda item number 10, the Finance Committee report forthcoming. And normally, we do the approved minutes from the previous month, but I went over that last month, so I think practice will be from now on that I will just quickly review the minutes of the latest Finance Committee, and that happened this morning at 7:30 a.m., so this is literally hot off the press here. So, and again, these minutes are not approved by the Finance Committee here, but just some items for us. First of all, in some things that we reviewed, we approved a trip to London and an extended field trip for June of 2025. for our students, and World Stride is the company that's going to be used for the trip. We also approved the RFP of the banking, RFP draft for the banking. As we know, CCF Bank will be closing the Faribault branch on February 3rd. Ms. Raisler and Ehlers put together a RFP, and the committee reviewed that. It was very thorough and comprehensive, and we passed that RFP as well. We also approved the cyber insurance policy. We were very fortunate that our premium increase only went up $196.54, which is 0.8%. So many people were saying we're very fortunate that that policy only went up that much. We also approved the pay 25 property taxes, an increase of 0.68% or $82,838.29 there. As far as our financial performance, our November student counts, as was said before, Ms. Raisler is now going to do our student counts with ADM, our average daily membership, which I believe is a little more accurate. And as of November, with our average daily membership, we're down about 36 compared to what we have budgeted for. So we'll have to take note of that and check that as we go. Our November comparative financial report, there's no report due to the early December meeting. And our November investment report is we did not have the bills for yet coming in for November, so no new information will be presented on our utilities. However, our self-funded insurance is in the red by $202,000 because of a number of high claims come in. But our revenue is still stable throughout the year. We do have a healthy fund balance with our self-insurance fund. Our November analytics, Ms. Raisler provided a 3-year guideline report showing our expenses compared to budget. I really like that format. It really laid out for us exactly what we spent in 2023, 2024, and projected in 2025. It was very good. Our general fund is right on track. In all funds included, we're up about 8 percentage points from last year, but the difference is in our building construction Fund 6. And then also I continue to learn things as I'm on the board here, but just for the general public's knowledge as well, as far as budget, we have, in the general fund, our budget is about $60 million in a year. But if you include all funds, our budget is $81 million, approximately $81 million. So that's a good number to know, and most of the time the board focuses mainly, we always look at just the general fund, but that was very good information that I received this morning and learned from that. So, Ms. Boudreau, anything else I should, from this morning that we had with that?
Very thorough.
Okay, thank you. With that, we'll move on to agenda item number 11, which is other matters. 11A, consider approval of the 2024 payable 2025 levy. So I'll entertain a motion for approval of the 2024 payable 2025 levy. Do I have that motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Boudreau. Do we have a second? I will second that. And discussion. So, Ms. Raisler, I don't think you have to come back up, unless you'd like to here, but there weren't many questions before. Board members, questions or discussion on this motion? This motion, last call, already. All in favor of the motion for approval of the 2024 payable 2025 motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. 11B, consider approval of cybersecurity insurance policy for CY 2025. So could I entertain a motion for approval of cybersecurity insurance policy for, I think it's fiscal year 2025. Calendar year, thank you. I've got so many acronyms or whatever. For calendar year 2025, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Boudreau. And a second, please.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Steves. Any discussion? As I stated in the Finance Committee report, just the increase of our security insurance, the tongue twister, went up marginally, so very small. So, Ms. Raisler, anything you want to address on that or questions with
Nope.
that?
I didn't know if anybody had discussion items.
Okay.
I just have some
Dr. Moore.
questions. Yes, thank you. On page 3 there, it talks about subjective. It said there is unanswered security questions present on the Cowbell renewal application. So we have some unanswered security questions on that?
Yes, there can be some unanswered questions if we were uncertain of the type of, depending on what they were asking as far as what processes we have in place. That does not mean that we're not secure. And the fact that we had such a low bid, it does tell us that that the insurance company feels that we are quite secure.
And also, just for the public, and for me too, on page 2, would you define regulatory costs and PCI costs, please?
That would be if we're taking credit cards. So if we take credit cards specifically, and we do not, parents can pay for things using their credit cards, but everything that we accept as credit cards is through a third party. So we do not hold any credit card data per se. We're
Okay,
using,
all right.
some alternate software system.
And then on page 8, it said the insurer is an eligible surplus lines insurer, but is not otherwise licensed by your state. And why aren't they licensed? That's on page 8.
Sorry, I have to
Shouldn't they be licensed?
refamiliarize myself with that piece. Okay. Okay, and you're on page 8. In case of, are you talking about,
Well, it said, wait a minute, let me look. I got a hard copy. Yeah, the second paragraph.
okay, the insurer is eligible surplus line insurer but is not otherwise licensed by your state. I would have to get back to you on that to understand
It probably should be licensed, though, right? Shouldn't they be? I'm guessing. I don't know that much about life insurance, but
well, this is cyber insurance and I'm not.
cyber,
I'm-
yeah. Well, I meant cyber.
Yeah.
How many other bids are submitted for this? Is it-
So we use an agency called Marsh McLennan, and they are the ones that provide us the best bid that came through.
Okay.
And so they are able to ask for different bids from various companies that do provide
Oh, okay.
cybersecurity specifically to school
Okay.
districts.
All right. Now, did the Faribault Public School tech staff did they have input in this since it's cyber?
Yes, the director of technology.
How many tech staff do we have, IT?
How many tech staff do
Yeah.
we have? I do not know that
I
off
think
the
it's
top
around
of my
7, I
head.
think, I'm not sure. But a few other questions too. I see this is an internet-based company, correct? The one that we're dealing with? Now, that's Marsh McLennan,
Marsh McLennan is an insurance agent.
but
who-
it's an internet-based company, correct?
No, it's an
No,
insurance
it's not.
broker.
It's an insurance
Oh, all right,
company.
okay, all
Yes,
right, okay.
yes.
Because I'm wondering why we can't do something more local with it, like State Farm, for instance, they're in town, you can build a relationship with that. So I'm just wondering why we don't go
I think
local.
I think it's really important to ensure that we're getting the best bid and that we are also working with agencies that have dealt with different types of school district insurance and that are able to provide, the best coverage that we can possibly have. I can.
Do we have did the IT people put together like a plan, like what is our goal, what is our risk, and then present it to the company?
No,
So they
the
know.
companies inquire of us. What do you have? What do you have for multi-factor authentication?
Okay, so you've
What do
answered
you
those
have?
questions,
Yes,
okay.
we have to answer all of those different types of questions. What third-party softwares do we use?
Mm-hmm.
And what are the protections that we have in case of any type of infiltration? So we are asked questions. We don't propose our plan to them.
Wait, so what is our insurance company then? Is it McClellan and it's called
So the agent that we're working with is McLennan.
Yep,
Who we are actually insured by.
right, that's what I'd like to.
Yeah, that's in the recommendation. And so that is the same company that we've used for the last few years, and that is Palomar Excess and Surplus Insurance.
Okay, thank you. When I initially looked at this, I have to say that I had some concerns about is it Marsh and McLennan, because it said some of they have non-US affiliates, and some of them were in Ukraine and China. And so I'm thinking, do we have cyber security so it's actually the broker?
Yeah, Marsh McLennan
Okay.
is our agent, our
Right.
broker, yes, and they are used heavily in the state of Minnesota, and they were, I'm not sure if they still are, the Minnesota School Board Association actually does recommend them.
Okay. Any further questions? Discussion? Questions or discussion? We do have a motion and a second for approval of the cybersecurity insurance policy for calendar year 2025. For discussion? All right, we're ready to vote. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion passes 5-1. 11C, consider adopting Resolution 25-13, establishing combined polling places for multiple precincts and designating hours during which the polling places will remain open for voting for school district elections not held on the day of a statewide election. Motion for approving, adopting Resolution 25-13, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Dr. Robichaud. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Boudreau. And discussion. Mr.
Mr.
Benty, Mr. Benty, is there anything you wish to add, anything?
No, this is just the standard. We pass this one every year. It's based on if the school district goes out on its own to do an election, that we're allowed to combine polling sites rather than have, 15 or 17 different precincts. It allows us to have, I think, 4 or 5. But the board would have to decide if it was going to go out for something.
Dr. Moore, do you have a question?
Yes, I just have a question. When it said the polling places for Faribault P2, it says Northfield Township. I know Northfield Township for the District 656, they have P1, Northfield Township P1, and Northfield Township P2. Does that include both then?
Yes, it would include all the townships that are part, so no one would be left out. It would just,
Yeah, 'cause it's
where
just
they
at
would
Northfield
vote, where they would
Township.
vote they wouldn't necessarily vote in the same place that they normally do for, say, a presidential election.
Well, the only reason I'm asking is because you said they're all included, but it just said Northfield Township, and I know they have P1 and P2. So I'm assuming Northfield Township would have
Yeah,
them combined.
yeah.
Is that right? Okay, thank you.
Good question. Further discussion? Discussion? This is a resolution, so Ms. Steves, we do a roll call, please.
Linda Boudreau,
Aye.
Linda Moore,
Aye.
Richard Olson,
Aye.
Gary Robichaud.
Aye.
Cassie Steves, aye. John Bellingham.
Aye.
Passes 6-0.
Thank you. Agenda item number 12, dates to remember. December 3rd, tomorrow, 3:45 PM, Policy Committee meeting. December 19th, 2024, 5:30 PM, special meeting, and it is on the audit report. We're dealing with the audit for the special meeting. January 6th, 2025, 5:30, board organizational meeting. January 13th, 2025, 7:30 AM, Finance Committee meeting, and January 21st, 2025, 5:30 PM, business meeting. And of course, the January 13th and January 21st meetings will be determined or scheduled on the organizational meeting on January 6th. With that, agenda item number 13 is adjournment. Motion to adjourn. Thank you, Dr. Robichaud. Oh, everyone wants to stay. Dr. Robichaud and Ms. Steves, the second. Discussion. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?